Thank you for having me and us. Jill will come up in a minute, but I am going to talk mixed use and a mall repositioning. So Northland Mall. So Northland Mall, this is a picture actually of the inside of the existing mall. It's great, right? It's well-being right there, right? Now, so this is actually a scene of The Last of Us. So The Last of Us was filmed, one of the episodes was filmed in the enclosed mall before it was torn down. So it's zombies and death but it's gonna go through a bit of a rebirth, and it's under construction right now. So through my brief, I've got about 12 minutes. I am going to explain the project, and then I'm going to explain how it fits in with the guidelines, the healthy community guidelines. So this mall, and a typical mall is, Northland is a typical mall. This is Calgary. It is near the University of Calgary. It's near Market Mall in the Northwest. It's good bones. So the existing mall is on a 40-acre site, surrounded by parking lots, great. You can all imagine how healthy that is. But it's going to go through a change. So this is the first phase of a broadly imagined future for Northland Mall. And the future imagines this being quite a dense site located at a transit stop. So it is currently on I don't know if you can see that, but Crowchild Trail is on the LRT line, but it's in between two stops, and it's the longest length between two stops. So there is potential for an LRT stop to be added right at this site. So just for information, this site north is to the right. So south is, and at the end is where the LRT could go. It is not planned in this first few phases to be installed, but we'll maybe Joyce, you and I can talk about the future of a site there. So essentially what we're proposing to do is demolish, and the mall is actually, as we speak, it has been fully demolished. The blue dotted lines there has been removed, and we're cracking that site open to do some better stuff and allow for a healthier connection with residential and the shopping center, this mixed use site that's proposed. The red on there is the basis of the proposed site. So the red is what we're calling the avenue, and that is the premise of all development on either side of it. So where the mall is developed, there is parking there now, but it's proposed to be mixed use in the future. Retail around it, and some healthcare and some office surrounding it. And then at the bottom, and you'll see on some of the next slides, is the first piece of residential development. So 280 units, 6-story wood frame development on a parkade underneath is the U that's at the bottom there. So that's our first foray, and the first developer to go on this site is at that location. So this site, this is the first phase. This is what it will look like. The orange is the residential, and inside that orange and in that location is a central plaza. There's an existing Walmart that has been developed and renovated to be it's a super center. So it's got grocery, grocery and other things that's in a super center. Around which is the west side, we're leaving some of this. So this is where some sustainability comes in, and the embodied carbon is remaining. It'll be renovated, but a lot of the structure is remaining so that we're not tearing absolutely everything down in that mall. Oh, there we go. So you can see in sort of the upper left, the enclosed mall, we're adding the residential. it turns into more of a place and a community, and with a central avenue. And then the future will have this residential on the bottom. Bottom is an image looking at the central plaza with the residential surrounding it. So this whole site will turn into a mixes of uses with grocery, retail, healthcare, and residential. This is looking down at the residential from the north, looking past, so it's the other side of that last view, looking down the avenue. So this is where I switched to how does the project stack up to the healthy community guidelines? Okay, so active transportation. So the drawing that you see there is how we're breaking it up. So when we crack open this mall and keep some of it, but get rid of some of it, it allows for multimodal connections through the site. So a couple things have happened. I don't know if you can see in that top drawing, but there's a blue line that actually is a bike path that's cutting through. It's being shared with traffic, but it'll be clear that there's room for the bikes to share with the cars that are going through there. Again, the orange is the multimodal connection, that avenue north-south. And then in front of the site, which the front is on the bottom of the page, which is running north-south, is a full bike path that crosses in front of the whole mall. So it's starting to be a much more multimodal site rather than all the cars driving and then going into the mall and then coming out and driving home. I want to draw your attention to the bottom right. So that piece, there is an overpass that comes over from the community to the northwest of it. So the bike path, walking path comes across. And what we've done here is there's a landing pad at the bottom once you've come over from the other side, and it's beautifully landscaped. There's seating, there's trees. It welcomes you when you land. It's not just a land and go. And once you get to the landing, there could be people sitting there. It's nice. You can see the picture on the left. Is some of the thinking that there's seating if you're walking and maybe you just need a break before you get into the shopping area and into the mixed use. And then as you proceed on your bike or walking, there is a safe, pleasant, treed pathway that gets you through the parking lot. So it's not just good luck, make your way through if you want to go to any of the shopping, but it's actually safely helping you cross the street, cross the parking lot. So this one, we've talked about another connector. Here is another connector that we've done through the parking lot. So we've torn them all down. There is parking in this first phase, but we've, from the central plaza across to some of the other shopping, we've done again, a pleasant landscape, treed, twinkly lights, to invite you across the parking lot. So it's breaking up the parking lot and encouraging you to walk across. It's not forcing you to go around or just walk through all the cars and hope and pray that you make it safely. So it's again getting some of that the landscaping across it. The other thing that this does, what we're hoping that these parking lots do with some of this nice landscaping is hosts the farmers markets on the weekend, and it draws people there. They set up along this pathway, they back the farmers, the kiosks up to this and open it up to no cars, and the idea of bringing the community in for a farmers market. So another one we're still on active transportation. A key piece, and this was actually something that the city of Calgary enforced, was that they made the developer break their residential unit apart. So there is a pathway through, well illuminated through the residential, well illuminated, safe, eyes on the street because you're walking right past the townhomes that are facing the street. It's to connect the bus stop to the Central Plaza. It's saying that, you know, you're coming by bus, and you don't have to just, it's not dropping you off on a cold street and you just have to make your way around. We've broken that residential unit apart and made it a safe and pleasant way to get to the Central Plaza. So active mobility, this one really should say active mobility and social connections, because this is quite a little bit of an elaborate puppy pad / dog park. It's not big enough to be called a park, so we're calling it a puppy pad, but it is right adjacent to the Central Plaza. So it's encouraging people to bring their dogs, sit, maybe grab a coffee next door and talk with your neighbor who also has a dog. And it's another way to bring that social connection piece, but also active mobility. It's saying, bring your dog, do things that are fun, you know, go out, move around, walk around the neighborhood. We're providing a service for you to do that safely and in a social way. The other thing I want to point out on this one, right across the street from this shopping center from Northland is a high school. And the high school, those kids at lunch will do whatever they can to go to McDonald's. Yes, there is a McDonald's on the site. I'm not supposed to say that, I know, Karen, but it's there. But we're also providing other healthy ones and actually moving healthier food closer to the high school and creating a very pleasant walkway down. There's a grade transition from this intersection where it says to high school. That has been well landscaped, and it's a stepped walk down to some retail and some healthier food options inside the site. The other thing that's interesting about this is the steps are facing south and surrounded by landscaping to encourage the kids to stop, sit, have their lunch, be in a safe environment, and have some healthy food. The social connections piece of this is that Central Plaza. The Central Plaza is surrounded by a food precinct. So it's restaurants, it's patios, it's seating. There can be picnic tables for people to sit, that you don't have to just buy something and sit at the patio. You can also sit in the public plaza and just sit and enjoy with your neighbors or with family and friends. So that is a big piece of this. The idea with some of this residential, by the way, is that the neighborhood is a bit of an older neighborhood surrounding this site. And the idea is that maybe these are people that they don't need the bigger home anymore. They don't want the maintenance of the single family home, and that they can come and downsize and bring their neighbors and meet at this site and live here, but have an active life once they've sold their bigger single family home. The healthy food options in this, I like to call this that these mix of uses are finally bringing the community to the amenities. Before, you would drive to your grocery store and to the amenities from, you know, your suburban home and drive. We're bringing the residences and the community to the grocery store and the healthier food options. At this site, I've mentioned the restaurant precinct and the grocery store, and there's also going to be a specialty grocer. So it's offering a variety of different food types. And that's my last slide. I wanted to leave it with you as, what can we do better? These kinds of sites are, there's going to be lots of them. Shopping centers are being redeveloped, reimagined all over the world, particularly North America. And how do we make them healthy and vibrant? So I welcome people to make suggestions. And thank you. And Jill, you're next.
too much. So I'm going to switch scale. So now for something totally different, talking about health and well-being at the community scale and talking about a vitalization plan that we did for the town of Kalmar. So I always like to put a warning before I give any sort of public speaking. So you have to take everything I say in the context of a passionate and excited urbanist. So there you have been forewarned if it gets a little bit soapboxy. I'm going to also talk a little bit about DIALOG. We are a purpose-based practice with studios across Canada and one in San Francisco, and we're really passionate about design and especially the integration of well-being into design. So how can we as designers help make our communities and our world better? And it's baked into everything that we do. And Susan talked about it in her project, and I'm hopefully going to talk a little bit about it in this project. So fortunately, we were hired by the town of Kalmar in March of 2020. So that was a great time to start a project. Not a lot happening in the world, so especially a project that was envisioned to be richly rooted in community engagement. So a very interesting time to start a project, and especially a project that's focused about transforming vitality for a community. However, the project this forced us to be really innovative, and I think developed a project that's ultimately been a lot more successful. And we completed the project in 2021, but it has become broadly celebrated, and that's unique for a long-term visioning study. This is a project that integrates both physical recommendations and also changes in policy. So it's not just thinking about how the community is going to evolve this year or next year, but what's it going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 25 years? And so really understanding the catalytic projects and the catalytic way you can think about well-being is an essential part of this project. So for those that don't know where Kalmar is, it's south of Edmonton, just west of Leduc, and so it's on the way to Lake Country, so it becomes really quite popular. There's 2,500 people that live in Kalmar. It's located in Leduc County, and it is a bit of a regional center for agriculture, also for some of that tourism. One of the challenges for Kalmar is that it's bisected by Highway 39, which is controlled by Alberta Transportation. I don't know if there's any transportation engineers in the room or any of you have pull with AT, but they are not always the most wellness-focused organization in the province. It's shocking, I know. And so it becomes an interesting point of conversation because the community and the town doesn't have agency over the highway, but we definitely need to make recommendations in terms of its role in bringing the community together. So this white box outlines the study area, and it's really focused on the main street of Kalmar. And so why are main streets so important when you think about healthy living? Before suburbia existed and we lived in a very different way and did our shopping and our socialization and work, a lot of that was centered around Main Street. In the 40s and 50s, there was this mass exodus to suburbia, and with that came an interdependency on automobiles. And suddenly we were driving everywhere and we didn't understand why we were less happy and less healthy. So this idea of getting back to Main Street has started to take a lot of root, and especially I think the pandemic has illustrated to us how important these main streets are, not just for our physical health, but for our social health, and particularly in a climate like Edmonton and the Edmonton region, where before the pandemic, no one was going to go outside and walk down a main street in February. It was minus 427. But now we've learned that we can be outside, we can gather, we can hang out with our friends and have a coffee outside on a main street. And so I think it's become really transformative, and we're going to start to see a lot more conversation about bringing back main streets in Canada. And this was a really fortuitous time to introduce this concept into the Kalmar plan. So the goal of the project was very specific, was to revitalize Main Street with well-designed public spaces, lively events, and vibrant shops. Sounds really simple, right? But it requires a multifaceted approach looking at policy changes, good urban design, and then economic development that can support all of these visions from happening. So through a very intensive public engagement process that happened all remotely, so we were inventing how to do hybrid engagement when it wasn't even a thing, We came up with this wonderful vision that was rooted in the community and really reflective of what Kalmar wants and speaks to the fact that it wants to draw people in. Main Street is that heart of downtown. It's the place where you can walk, come together, socialize. It is lively and welcoming. It meets the daily needs of the community, hosts events, and celebrates small town character. That meets daily needs was really important. We want people in Kalmar to be able to get a pint of milk and an apple and have a coffee and see the doctor on Main Street without having to drive to Leduc or into Edmonton. The project developed a series of guiding principles, and they really relate to the guiding principles that are in the Guidelines for Healthy City. So our project guiding principles were walkable and safe, beautiful public spaces, inviting to residents and visitors a variety of destinations. That diversity is really important, celebrating the character of place, and supporting small local businesses. When you look at our guiding principles that were developed in 2020, they really align quite nicely with the Healthy Communities guidelines, focusing on active transportation, recreation, healthy food at a variety of scales. This is the Main Street concept plan, and I'm going to start to speak about how it actually aligns and invigorates some of those policies. So you can see a lot of green and a lot of yellow, and what we're trying to do is emphasize making the street walkable and human scaled, adding trees to help provide buffer from the sun and from the traffic, and encouraging crossing of the highway as much as possible to make this become a fine-grained, highly walkable loop. Most of the residents in Kalmar live on the left-hand side of the screen in more of a suburban condition, and the arena and major recreation grounds is to the right-hand side of the screen. And so how can we make people that are used to driving start to be able to walk within this Main Street? So the project has a series of different initiatives and opportunities, and I'm going to relate them back to the healthy guiding principles. Supporting healthy food environments is a big one because this is so close to a lot of agriculture. There's a very vibrant and excellent farmers market. So if you do live in Edmonton, even though I said don't drive, do drive to Kalmar and go to their farmers market. The streetscape improvements sought to really improve the physical space for the farmers market and make it much more walkable because they're so close to lake country. There are a lot of people that used to just drive through, and the streetscape improvements really focus on encouraging people to stop, walk, get out of their cars, and access healthy fruit and vegetables that are locally grown. Social connections. Because we did this in the pandemic, this was so important to this community. This was a time when I think we were all starved for human connection. And so we really focused on the development of catalytic spaces where people can come and bump together, hang out. A lot of this was talking about social distancing at the time. So again, looking at an empty lot that was underutilized, privately owned, the city came together to sod it and create a pop-up park that allowed residents to come connect, to be outside, to gather, and to really focus on improvement of mental health. Active mobility, this is a very car-dominant town, and the highway bisecting it certainly doesn't help. And so we spent a lot of time focusing on the pedestrian realm, how to improve it to make it much more desirable for people to walk down Main Street. That is a classic element of a good Main Street, is that walkability. And so focusing on spaces where we can widen the sidewalks, where we can put benches in a way that makes sense, where we can organize trees and other site furnishings to create a buffer space from traffic. These are all elements that help make people walk. And the other thing that we talked about a lot in this plan is the loop. People like to walk in a circuit, and so having an equal amount of emphasis from a design perspective on both the north side and the south side of the street makes it much more desirable for people to walk. I don't know if Mayor Herron is here, but I will gladly come and talk to your council about why sidewalks on two sides of the streets are important. Active recreation, again, making spaces for people to get out and have fun and interact. And then active transportation. This one, again, was challenging, and we gave, hopefully, the town a lot of tools to advocate with Alberta Transportation about integrating multimodal connections along the highway and making it safe to cross the highway. So with any good plan, there needs to be a really focused emphasis on implementation. How are we going to actually bake all of these ideas forward? And I think this will be one of the important considerations for the healthy guidelines going forward, is how do you actually get this into policy at the municipal, provincial, and national level to make meaningful change. And so we outlined a plan that looked at what the low-hanging fruit is. What are the projects that you can do in the immediate term to build momentum and support and excitement for the project? Those initial few projects are often essential to getting that widespread buy-in at both the political and community level. And so we were really specific about what those short-term quick wins could be, and then building out a medium and long-term strategy for the implementation of the project. DIALOG was fortunate enough to work with Intelligence House and ZAG to make sure that we were looking at all of the multiple facets of this project. And I think that partnership was integral to the development of a really robust plan. And so with that, I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jill and Susan. I'll open it up for burning questions, and there might be one from our virtual audience. Okay, this one is for the Northland Mall example. So these small specialty grocery stores usually have higher prices that drive people to the large Costco's or Walmarts. How do we make these small stores more competitive so that they are economically viable? And this question is for Susan.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think the idea of a specialty grocery store was a complement to a more affordable Walmart supercenter that will help draw people from a little further afield, perhaps. I think was the question, how do we make it more viable? I'm not sure that actually how to do that. I mean, they will pay a rent. It'll be higher than Walmart pays. Walmart pays very little rent to any of these. They're anchors in the developments. Yeah, so I think the whole idea is to just offer a diverse offering to the site, to develop, to bring a variety of people into the site.
Yeah, great question. I think you're right around the diversity piece is key. And I see a question over, maybe we'll go here in the red do we have a microphone coming around? Okay, we're just going to take this one question. So I know there were other hands up. Save those, and we are going to have time at the end for more discussion. But please go ahead.
Well, thank you, panelists. And I just wanted to quickly ask a quick question for public engagement. Jill, if you could maybe just expand on the fact that we do have an opportunity to have a number of our communities who feel overwhelmed when there are development strategic plans that are going forward, and how you can, I guess, smooth the way or the lanes for those people who maybe have, bigger concerns about climate. And as well, I loved your idea about the apple, pint of milk, or a doctor. And I think that's one way we can encourage other people to understand how our cities can strategize and involve people. And the idea of the Main Street is quite inspirational.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the question on public engagement is a passion of mine, and this is where I will lean back into that warning I gave everyone. I really believe that everyone has a social right from an equity perspective to participate in the design of their cities. We all are members of our community, and we know our community best. And so as designers, we have a lot of responsibility to make sure that we're engaging communities on what they want to see in these plans and make it as easy as possible for people to participate. I do think the pandemic has been a game changer in changing how we engage, particularly in the Edmonton region. Before, it used to be a public meeting that happened from 6 to 7 p.m. and largely attended by similar demographic, and if you had kids and soccer and life and worked shift work, like you didn't have a chance of going. And so, I always encourage our clients and our collaborators to go out to at diverse times, to do online, to do in person. There's lots of ways to engage. And then, again, setting up a process where people feel safe and included, as designers looking around and saying, who's not at the table, who do we need to go out and speak to, again, to make sure that those diverse and underrepresented voices are included in the process, and then encouraging our clients to actually listen to that feedback. One of the things I think that's scary a lot of times for communities is that when you do meaningful public engagement, you don't know what the outcome is. And you have to be willing to be open and trust the process. And so I think all of these things, when they come together, can make for a really beautiful story where a community feels heard and seen and part of the conversation.
Thank you. Please hold all your other great questions and we'll come back to it after our final presentation.